Tales of the Caballos by William H. White. Part 2, Chapter 5, Fred Drolte. Fred Drolte was a pioneer during the early days of treasure hunting in the Caballo Mountains. Fred Drolte filed numerous mineral claims on the mountain and built some of the first roads into the claims at Granite Peak. These claims were guarded with armed men paid for by Fred. Their instructions were to shoot should someone try to cross into Granite Peak area without permission. It is certain that this did happen on occasion. Fred Drolte was able to do this because there was no Bureau of Land Management or other federal presence on the New Mexico public lands at that time. Fred Drolte was there until the mid-70s. He mysteriously closed up his operation during that time for reasons unknown and never returned. My feeling is he got his and left the site a happy man. The thing about Fred Drolte's claim that makes them important is that they are mineral claims filed to protect treasure trove. Although this is not what the mining laws were designed to do, a mineral claim on the Caballo Mountains is usually honored by other treasure hunters as if the persons filing were really after raw minerals. One place Fred worked was particularly interesting because his driller drilled into a room that had piles of gold bars in it. It became all the more interesting because Fred abruptly shut the operation down without attempting to recover the new finds. There were two remaining persons who witnessed this event, and one of them took the drill bit to Las Cruces and had it assayed. It turned out to be around 60% gold, which is consistent with the Spanish gold bars found in the area. No one knows for sure why Fred shut down, but when he did, he took very good care of the driller and the two equipment operators who were working for him at the time. It has been rumored that Fred Drolte gave each of the three $150,000 each for their efforts. I think that this is more than a rumor, and the three actually did receive this amount of money from Fred. I am failing to mention the names of the three at this time because two of them still remain in the area and treasure hunt on the mountain. There's one chapter in the book, 100 Tons of Gold, entitled The One-Armed Man is King, which deals with Fred Drolte. That venerable attorney, F. Lee Bailey, speaks of trouble trying to gain access to the Granite Peak claims. What his real business there was will never be known until Bailey decides to write his memoirs. Fred Drolte worked the mountain for over 12 years at the time when the permits were not required by the BLM. A miner with a valid mining claim could pretty much do as he or she pleased on public land in those days, and Fred Drolte was no different than any other miners of this era. It is believed in most circles that Fred Drolte removed between 80 to 150 gold bars from the Granite Peak area. How else could he afford to give his help such a generous severance pay? Fred simply did not want the responsibility of dealing with such a large find at the twilight of his career. The original hole Fred Drolte drilled is still there on Granite Peak. It has been carefully covered up, although there is about 80 feet of material accumulated in the shaft at this time. I would caution the reader not to rush to this site without obtaining permission from the current claimants. That kind of activity is frowned upon today, as much as it was during those days. The stack of gold bars Fred Drolte drilled into was rumored to be 5 feet high, 30 feet across, and 50 feet long. These numbers have been confirmed more or less by an engineering company from Tucson, Arizona. Any way you stack it, that is a lot of gold bars. Fred Drolte was not the last man to work the Granite Peak site. His claims were leased by 3 brothers who still live in the area and therefore cannot be named. Were they successful? Yes, and no more can be stated at this time. The end. Up next, Part 2, Chapter 6, Doc Perrick.